Hello and welcome to Impossible Mission, the semi-regular outing here on the Geek Show where we talk about a recent happening from the world of video games in a little bit more depth than would traditionally be allowed on News Trash. I am Rob, and as ever I have been joined by Prob.
Hello.
Yeah, what we talk about this time, because there's so many we got on the back burner here. It's been quite friendly for content, for picking up topics.
Yeah.
In recent times.
Well, one thing kind of stood out to me, and it's been causing a little bit of a to-do on the interwebs recently, and that's Ubisoft's decision to turn The Division into a free-to-play game, the new Division game, The Division Heartland.
Oh, good, because honestly, there's other topics that I've been noticing recently, like how it's becoming much more territorial between all the sort of different parties. But that'd be a horrible episode to do. So this is much easier and not going to annoy anybody. So that's good.
Well, this is the thing. People are kind of up in arms about The Division becoming a free-to-play game because, from the way I understand it, Ubisoft. Well, it's this thing, right? Ubisoft and quite a lot of other publishers and developers have been, for a long time, wanting to tap into that massive market that is the free-to-play game.
Well, I think you've got to sort of backtrack a little bit even before that. There's been this thing going around in publishers who constantly been complaining of the fact that games cost more than they used to.
Yeah.
So they've got to find other ways to make money. But before that, just in the first point, games cost more than they used to because games publishers constantly keep on pushing this idea that games have to be effectively endless. And when games are effectively endless, of course they're going to cost more money.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's a prophecy that they said was going to happen, so they're going to make it happen.
Yeah,
anyway.
which is one of the reasons why you end up with games like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, where a 20 to 30 hour game is padded out to the nines to become a 100-hour game. It's a 100-hour game.
Oh, well, that's no need
with
for that.
all of the extra fetch quests and all of the extra side quests and everything like that. That add virtually nothing to the game.
Yeah. So that's where you get situations arising where publishers and developers want to get more money from a game. So that's where the idea of loot boxes came out.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's kind of slowing down a little bit because governments around the world have been sort of claiming, that's gambling. Don't put gambling in your games. It's bad. It's illegal. And around that time, it was kind of lucky that the mobile model started popping up, didn't it? The free-to-play and
the mobile
and stuff like this.
The mobile model has been around for about a decade now, right? The free-to-play game
really hit its stride in the last 2-3 years.
Yeah, partly because of games like Fortnite and PUBG and stuff like that. One of the more recent games that's become really big is Call of Duty Warzone. And obviously Ubisoft have looked at what Activision have achieved with Call of Duty Warzone and gone, we want a bit of that pie.
I mean, let's be honest, Ubisoft are one of the most egregious pushers of microtransactions.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the name of their racing game was. Was it The Club or The Crew? Or that one that you got from one side of America to the other?
The Crew, wasn't it?
Yeah, one or the other. But basically, if you want any of the better cars, you have to pay real money for them. And it's just
exactly.
This is a good game, but you're basically making me hate it when I'm playing it.
See, this is the thing, and this is where the mind tricks come in with this free-to-play model, right? People are more willing to pay for things in a free-to-play game than they would be in a game where they've had to pay 70 quid for the game, or 50 quid for the game, right?
And they end up paying way more than 70 quid, the typical consumer anyway.
There are games that are free-to-play. One of the most notorious ones is that, I don't know, if you've probably seen the adverts for them, you know, that, Homescape, Gardenscape, whatever.
Yeah, the one which has the advert, which is basically, here's a guy who's in a kitchen and it's got some tubes, and you got to move the tubes, otherwise he'll get gunked or electrocuted or something.
Exactly.
And that's nothing like the game. So even before you play the game, it's basically advertising something which doesn't exist.
Yeah, but here's the thing. The game is a match 3 game, and you basically go around repairing your mansion with your parents. Now, it's a very well-designed game for what it is, but here's the hook. that kind of game, because you get absorbed into the whole world of the game, you can easily spend, in a week, you can easily spend 200, 300 quid in a week, right, on that game, and not even realise you've spent it. And the only reason I know that is because happened to a mate of mine. He did exactly that. He spent £300 on Homescapes, and he didn't even know he'd done it.
That's kind of the core of why I keep at arm's length from mobile gaming.
Yeah.
Because I know how insidious it is with the marketing and pricing stuff.
Yeah. The microtransactions in mobile games, again, it's one of those things, and the big publishers and the bigger developers want a piece of this pie. I mean, there's rumours that Beyond Good and Evil 2 is going to be a live service game.
It's not rumours. It's just the way that has been developing, the things that they've been saying. It's basically all but suggested that it's going to be this free-to-play ecosystem.
Yeah.
Multiplayer game without actually coming out and saying it. If it actually comes out at all, I mean, which even that, what it's looking like has me very, very disheartened as a big fan of the original.
Yeah.
I mean, how Lick and Turn. Basically, I guess you'd sort of compare it to... I don't know what you compare it to, really. There was a little bit of Zelda in it. Like an action-adventure RPG sort of thing, where you take photos of animals and save the world from aliens and your best friend's a pig, and you turn that into a free-to-play live service game.
Yeah, and the reason why they're doing that is because of the name, Beyond Good and Evil. It's such a beloved game that they want to capitalise on the name.
But let's be fair, they've pissed off a lot of people by turning that into that.
Yeah. But here's the question I have with regards to this, right? Because this is a door opening on a new form of video game business model, which is only going to get more and more rampant as time goes on. And the question I have is, what other games are we going to see heading down this route?
Before that, honestly, I think if that's what's going to happen with video games, reaching this point where it's sink or swim for the video game industry,
yeah,
there's going to be some people who actually don't get bothered in the slightest by it and they're okay playing it. Tend to be younger people because they're more invested in the Call of Duty War Zones and the Fortnites. There's going to be the older people who are used to just paying for a game and that's it. You paid for the game. Yeah. They're going to be incredibly alienated by this. So there's going to be this weird schism that's going to be caused in the video game culture by this hunger that companies can't seem to satisfy.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. There is going to be a breaking point, and I can see that as well. I think anybody with eyes would be, and some modicum of common sense would be able to see that.
Yeah, definitely.
But I do have to ask the question: what other games are going to go down this route? If The Division has gone down this route, and Call of Duty has gone down this route, and Beyond Good and Evil is going to be a live service game, I mean, if you look at other franchises, World of Warcraft, for example, is one of the biggest MMOs in the world, yeah? In fact, at one point, it was the biggest MMO in the world.
It's the thing that kind of made MMO a known quantity, really.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say...
in the public eye.
Yeah.
Not within nerd circles and geeky circles. I mean, general, normal gamers heard of the term MMO through World of Warcraft.
Exactly. MMOs have been around for a long time, but World of Warcraft was the one that really brought it to public attention, you're right. But on the back of World of Warcraft, you've had other MMOs. You've had Terra, you've had EVE Online, you've had various others. I'm impressed by Final Fantasy XIV, and I used to play Final Fantasy XIV a lot. I've kind of fallen off it a bit in recent years.
But that's longevity's amazing.
Yeah, and one of the reasons for that is because what Square actually set out to do, because the original version of Final Fantasy XIV was dog shit.
I heard, yeah.
It was that bad. And they basically took it apart and rebuilt it from the ground up with a new control system, new combat system, new everything, and called it A Realm Reborn, relaunched it, and everybody's happy with it. And what they did...
There was a vision there, though.
Yeah, there was a vision there. But one of the things that they did, and it's one of the reasons why Final Fantasy XIV, I think, recently overtook World of Warcraft, which is surprising, but one of the things that they did was focus on a narrative. They had a very strong single-player campaign.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I worry about, I mean, this there's ways to do this which is good, and there's ways to do this which is bad.
Yeah.
There's the Final Fantasy way, like you said, which they really broke it down and built it back up again, and this was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And then there's the Avengers.
Yes, exactly.
That more of these companies are doing Avengers because they want some of that sweet, sweet pie than people are doing like Final Fantasy 14.
See, you read my mind. I was actually going to bring the Avengers up right after I was talking about Final Fantasy 14. With any game, right, you're supposed to have certain things given to you as part of the game. Achievements, trophies, new costumes, new weapons, new abilities, that sort of thing. That's part of the game. But when you put these things behind a paywall, that's no longer a game.
Well, the best costumes are all behind paywall, and they're getting money for this game by basically getting costumes from mobile phone providers and energy providers, and it's just the most crass capitalism I think I may have ever seen in video games. It's certainly up there if it's not it.
One of the things I used to love about games like EVE Online, for example, was that you could actually pay for your subscription in EVE Online by basically just playing the game. If you got enough credits in the game, you could buy a Plex in the game. That was another 30-day subscription for you. So you could pay for your subscription just by playing the game.
Let's loop it back around to Ubisoft, though, because I want to sort of look at it franchise by franchise to see what they could potentially do with each, if they can do anything with each.
Well, I think we need to expand it from Ubisoft, but Ubisoft first.
This is who we're talking about today, but there's other companies which is relatable.
Yeah, starting off with Ubisoft, they've said The Division, but
personally, I think it's, of all the franchises that Ubisoft have, The Division's probably the best one, given the nature of what it is, because if they do it right, if they do it like it's story driven, and it's not just, oh, here's another drop, here's another raid, here's another blah blah blah. If they make it narrative, yes, it could work, but it could just as easily not work. Like Ubisoft's mobile phone games have been really, really bad.
Two franchises immediately sprang to mind when I thought about free-to-play games and Ubisoft. Number one was Watch Dogs, because they've done Watch Dogs Legion, right? And Watch Dogs Legion, mixed reception.
It's a valiant experiment, but an ultimate failure.
Yeah, but imagine Watch Dogs Legion as an MMO.
Horrible.
As a free-to-play MMO where you don't know whether the person you're talking to is friend or foe and whether it's an NPC or an actual player.
Yeah, it's absolutely horrible idea, that one. Because honestly, it might be likely, because it's clear playing as day, that Ubisoft don't care about Watch Dogs because they've sent it to its death every time it's had a new game.
Yeah, but that's not the one that I'm most concerned.
Just about add to that, they put out Watch Dogs Legion a few weeks before Assassin's Creed, so it shows how much faith they have in it. So, as much as I think it's a horrible idea, it's probably more likely than not.
Yeah, well, you've just mentioned the other franchise, because you remember Assassin's Creed Unity? Do you remember Assassin's Creed Unity, Rob? The travesty that was an MMO Assassin's Creed?
I don't remember much about Assassin's Creed, to be honest. It's just a big grey blur of double knife hands.
Do you not remember the trailer? Do you not remember the trailer during the French Revolution or whenever it was, sometime in France, and you have the assassins and there's like, fight together. You're like,
I try not to remember Assassin's Creed, Rob, because it just gives me a headache.
But yeah, Assassin's Creed Unity was a failed experiment in making a multiplayer Assassin's Creed game.
Yeah.
And I reckon if they wanted to cash in on a franchise, that would probably be the one above Watch Dogs. I would put Assassin's Creed as a potential.
Far Cry they couldn't do anything with, although I wish they'd just do more than, it's the same thing but in a new place, because that's just completely lacking in any imagination. Riders Republic, that's a new franchise sort of coming off the back of Steep. That could be free to play, and that, because of the nature of it, and I don't think that'd damage it too much.
Yeah.
What else have they got, really? Beyond Good and Evil, which we've talked about.
Yeah, Beyond Good and Evil. They've got quite a few. See, this is the thing. Ubisoft have quite a few studios under their belt that they've basically taken over, and that have become part of them over the years. I think Microids was one of them, and what was it? There was, I think, a few others. Sunflower.
Here's the thing, Ubisoft. Here's the thing. Do whatever you want. Make all of your franchises free to play. I don't care. Just bring back Rayman, and we're cool. Yeah?
Yeah.
That's all I've got to say. Bring back Splinter Cell, make that a normal game. Bring back Rayman, make that a normal game. To hell with the rest of them. Make them all free to play. Don't care.
Oh. What if they make Splinter Cell a free-to-play game?
I don't think it's possible. You'd have to do some real mad gymnastics to make that free-to-play game.
You're saying that, but they tried to do... what was that Metal Gear game that they did?
Gear Survive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Konami when they kind of lost their minds.
Yeah, that exists. And if that
Really
exists...
bad.
Yeah, that exists. And if that exists, I would not put it past Ubisoft. And I know it's a completely different company, but I wouldn't put it past them doing a Splinter Cell free-to-play game.
Yeah, it'd be possibly the biggest video game middle finger to a fandom in the history of video games, because they really, really, really want Splinter Cell back, and to do that to that fandom would be just cruel. So cruel. Oh, I mean, my God, it'd be horrible.
They've already got For Honor, which is actually quite a successful... it's subscription-based, isn't it, For Honor?
I'm not sure what it is, but it's ticking away, and it's got a good fandom.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you look at Ubisoft's back catalogue, and from recent years, aside from the likes of the Tom Clancy stuff, I mean, if they're doing The Division, I would not put it past them doing other things like Ghost Recon and Splinter Cell as free-to-play.
I mean, Siege works well within its current sort of system.
Yeah, Rainbow Six, yeah.
Rainbow Six Siege, yeah.
But that's taken a while to actually build up, because originally that didn't work properly, and they basically, patched it and added to it and patched it and added to it, and it's taken 3-4 years for it to get to the point it's at now.
Yeah, and it's huge now.
Yeah,
but
if you look at
work at it, yeah.
But what Ubisoft want to do is basically have something like Call of Duty Warzone, where people started playing it from day one, and it was big from day one.
I mean, I'm intrigued about the Division Heartland, because honestly, it felt like it was just missing something, the Division.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was, so I'd be compelled to try it out on a free-to-play system. I mean, I wouldn't pay anything for it, because honestly, I don't want any money of mine to go to Ubisoft. I can't stand them, unless it's for Rayman. But yeah, the Division, I'm curious.
See, I played the Division, and I've played bits of the Division too, and to me, and I know that the Division has its fans, but to me, it's a game without a soul.
I mean, that might be what it's missing, but there's something there which it just lacks.
That's what I mean. It's lacking a soul. Yeah. It's. I basically.
So right on your theory here. Well, in the board meeting, we've got the Division. What can we do? It's good, but it's lacking something. One guy in the back says soul, and then there's got that little meme where it's like a cartoon strip, and somebody suggests something, and they throw them out the window.
Yeah,
and
that's me. I know.
And then they say, "Oh, right, so throw money at it and make people pay for it." That's it. That's what it's missing.
Exactly. But this is the thing. The Division 1 and the Division 2, you play the games, and I'm just basically going through the motions playing the games. There's no incentive for me to try or do anything particularly special or relevant. I'm just basically going through the motions.
Here's the thing which I've always felt about free-to-play games. The ones which really have a success rate are the ones where you feel like you have some sort of level of attachment to the character that you're working with, you're playing as.
Or to the world.
Yeah, and that's not there for the Division at all.
Yeah, apparently. Exactly. Because at the end of the day, part of it is the setting. I hate to say it, but part of it is the setting. Oh no, America has fallen apart. Let's get together and fix America. And I'm British, I don't really care.
Yeah.
Is number one. Right? I honestly don't really care.
Yeah. You're going to give people a stake for it. I mean, that's the weird thing. You think that Ubisoft are an American company with a concept like that, but they're not. French.
Yeah.
Ubiquitous Software are French.
And if it was Canada is falling apart, we have to save Canada, I'd be like, okay, let's give it a go. Yeah, can I fight some bears? Can I fight some bears?
A more interesting geographical game, though, wouldn't it? Because there's a lot of Canada is like massive woodland.
Do you know the funniest thing about Canada is pretty much all of the people are like on the edge of the US border, and to the further north that you go, there's like virtually no one.
It's like woodland and then ice and then nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
But you hinted that you wanted to talk about other franchises from other publishers, so, shoot.
Yeah, I mean, well, I've already mentioned Final Fantasy, and I know that Square already have, like, various free-to-play Final Fantasy games on mobile devices, but they look like free-to-play games. They're pixel graphics, stuff like that. Final Fantasy Brave Exvius is, one of the examples. There are others of varying degrees of graphical quality, yeah? But if you look back to last year, the success of Genshin Impact, and Genshin Impact is a solid game, and I can see other publishers going down the route of putting out a solid game as a free-to-play game and having microtransactions at some point appear in the game, which is basically what happened with Genshin Impact.
Yeah,
so
fine.
Up to a point, it gets you invested in the world, in the characters, everything like that, and then it introduces the microtransactions. And yes, it's a free-to-play game, but up to that point, you kind of feel like you've got your money's worth.
Here's the thing, I'm not averse to the idea of free-to-play games. I believe that games can come in different sizes and packages. Not everything needs to be a £70 AAA game. There can be different things. Smaller games, cheaper price, indie games, cheaper price, free-to-play games, completely separate altogether. It's not, clearly we're not in the world of one size fits all.
I would not put it past Capcom, for example, to do a free-to-play Resident Evil game at some point.
Yeah, I don't think that really jams as a concept. Street Fighter, sure, yes, Street Fighter works. But Resident Evil, not so much.
Free-to-play zombie games are all over the place, and the only thing they're missing is a Resident Evil game.
Yeah, you put a Resident Evil is sort of heightened horror melodrama.
Yeah, I know. You put a Resident Evil game out there, and if it's halfway decent, it will basically fly. All it has to be is halfway decent, and all you need to do for that is basically have some investigation as to the virus and what's going on and where everything's going. Have a basic character creator and let them explore and kill zombies from a third person or over the shoulder perspective. That's all you need.
Yeah, I'd be very wary about doing it with Resident Evil because I don't think they're entirely safe from the legacy of all those bad games. They are one bad decision from, being dragged back to the filth of Resident Evil 5, 6 and all of those pointless spin-offs. So I think Resident Evil's one you got to kind of play safe with for a little bit longer at least.
Yeah, that's why I didn't say... I said at some point, I didn't say now.
Oh, no, I'm just qualifying that.
Yeah, but... It is something that is possible. It's entirely possible. We know zombie free-to-play games are very, very popular.
Boring, conceptually, but, popular.
Yeah. I mean, we know that sports games are always popular, and there's free-to-play sports games are a dime a dozen, so I think we can discount those. We can just put those off to one side.
Honestly, free-to-play sports games are probably the best sort of concept for a sports game anyway.
Yeah.
They don't make sense as an annual release. They just don't.
Unless it's a subscription model where you pay an annual subscription for that game.
Yeah.
And it gets updated.
As a $50, $60, $70 annual release, it just doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. Let's put it this way. I would happily pay, right? And I know it comes to about 60 quid for a year. But if FIFA was a subscription model and I paid like 4 quid a month for it, yeah? Or 5 quid a month for it, I'd happily pay that for a few months.
For a few months, yeah.
Because it means I can basically end the subscription when I get bored of playing it, restart the subscription when I want to play more of it.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah, and I'll always have the latest version of the game that way.
Yeah, but FIFA, EA are supremely greedy when it comes to FIFA.
Yeah, but if you look at EA franchises, where to begin with the EA franchises? Because this is an avenue that EA are definitely going to explore.
So we know everything that EA does. It's going to be free to play. They have no morals at that company, they really don't. They've shown it time and time again. I mean, a few weeks ago we did that story about their reaction to a news story that maybe they're pushing FIFA Ultimate Team a little bit too hard. It was kind of like, yeah, we don't care, pay, we want your money. That was kind of like the subtext of everything that they said. So morals and EA are kind of like, night and day.
Yeah, do you know one of the things though? that I think is going to be, and this is going to be a tragedy if what we are talking about comes to pass, if the publishers and the developers, the bigger ones, really go down this route and take their existing IPs and make them free to play. Because they're basically cannibalizing their own back catalogue. They're taking these beloved titles and turning them into some kind of Frankenstein's monster of a game
and
for profit.
Like I said, they're drawing a line in the industry and the community and the people who interact with their games.
Yeah, and that's just all that's going to achieve, from my perspective, this weird, and I can only call it cannibalization of their own content, of their own IP, because that's effectively what it is, isn't it?
To an extent, yeah.
You know, all I can see is that basically pushing gamers away from those games.
But it's appealing to a very ready-to-spend minority.
Yeah.
So they don't care, just as long as they get the money, some companies.
Do you know the interesting thing about Genshin Impact? And I'm going to use... I think Genshin Impact is one of those games where you could easily do kind of a paper about it as to why it became so successful and examine the reasons why. And I think one of the reasons why is because it's a new IP. It didn't exist as a previous franchise or anything like that. It's a totally new IP, totally fresh story, totally new characters, and just launched under its own steam and became popular.
Yeah.
And if publishers and developers are putting out new content, new titles, new IPs as free-to-play, that might be interesting.
Yeah, if it's not damaging the existing stuff and it's just new ideas, maybe.
Because the last thing you should be doing is damaging your own brand and damaging your own IP just because you want to make money.
Again, the proof's in the pudding, and some companies seem all too willing to do that.
Yeah, EA. And yeah, just too many games to list when you say that.
There is. EA would do it to anything.
It's a strange situation that we've ended up in.
Just to clarify, I'm not being anti-EA, I'm just basically commenting on their nature.
Yeah, but I mean, it is a strange situation that we've ended up in. That's... And, okay, none of what we're talking about might happen, right? It may be that publishers... Yeah, it may be... I'm just speaking hypothetically. It may be that publishers wait and see what happens with the Division. Because Call of Duty...
So, there's certain companies where you think, yeah, they'll happily do it. They'll have no bones about it whatsoever.
Yeah.
So Ubi Soft, EA, Activision, Blizzard, them, I think, would have no bones about heavily free-to-play eyes and monetizing their content. But the others, I don't think they'd be quite as willing to do that. Yeah.
I mean, if you look at, say, THQ Nordic...
Yeah, I don't think they would.
Yeah, I don't think they would. Team 17, they're off doing their own thing anyway.
Yeah. Sony first party, no. Microsoft first party, no. Nintendo first party, no.
Exactly. Square already dabble in free-to-play games, but they basically... They're happy with Final Fantasy XIV. They've got another expansion coming out in October this year, and that seems to be generating a lot of goodwill from players for them as a company.
Yeah. People
are buying merchandise for Final Fantasy XIV. People are, buying items in-game and renewing subscriptions for it quite regularly. So, which kind of brings us back to a weird point, right? It wasn't long ago when MMOs started kind of being a bit free-to-play themselves.
That's the only way that could sort of...
compete with the free-to-play model.
Well, the MMO subscription thing isn't very contemporary.
Yeah.
Whereas I think free-to-play is a bit more.
Yeah, it's a bit more contemporary, but again, we come back to this thing, you have to have something that pulls you in so you are willing to pay for the game. And with the MMO free-to-play thing, it was like, oh yeah, you can get up to this level before you have to start paying for your subscription, right? Up to level 30 or something like that. By that point, you're invested in the game, in the world, in the character that you created. So yeah, if you want to keep playing, you're going to buy a subscription.
For certain titles.
Yeah, for certain titles it definitely works, but I don't know. I mean, would Konami go down a free-to-play route?
Yeah.
With what?
No, I don't know, but for a company who turned their franchises into pachinko machines, I don't think you can judge them too harshly.
Yeah,
I do think they are trying to repair their name and their legacy.
Yeah.
But still, they've got a long way to go.
there are certain anime-based games that are free, that have free-to-play versions or free-to-play kind of spin-offs, but the main game itself isn't free-to-play. So things like Persona and that, I know there's free-to-play Persona stuff.
Yeah.
But I think it's more difficult with those because the free-to-play market is awash with all sorts of anime-based or anime art style games. There are a dime a dozen. So I mean, it's an interesting thing. It's an interesting thing to look at. And we will obviously watch this space and see what develops with this whole free-to-play business. Will other companies jump on board or not? You know, will they push big franchises towards it, or will they do new IPs?
What's your opinion of the increasing free-to-play games that are on the market? Comment below, I'd love to hear from you.
If you want to listen to more of me and Rob talking about video games, then you'll find News Trash and Marmalade on our channel on YouTube. And if you are enjoying everything and you want to support us, you can find our Patreon link in the description below.
But until next time, thank you for watching, and please click subscribe and like and on the notification bell.
Bye!